Japan is about to pay companies to make their workers exercise. That's not a joke. The Ministry of Education just announced they're considering direct financial support for any business that gets employees moving. And here's why this matters to you, even if you've never set foot in a Japanese office. Japan is facing a crisis that every developed nation will eventually hit: an aging population, a shrinking workforce, and productivity that just can't keep up. Their solution? Turn the workplace into a gym. But this isn't just about stretching at your desk. This is about billions of yen in government money flowing into a completely new category of business incentive. In this video, you'll learn 3 things. First, exactly what this policy means and how much money we're talking about. Second, why Japan believes fitness equals economic growth, and whether the data actually backs that up. Third, how this could reshape everything from Japanese office culture to the global fitness industry. Let's break it down. Here's what we know. Japan's Ministry of Education, Culture, Sports, Science and Technology, known as MEXT, is now actively considering a financial support program for companies that promote exercise and sports among their employees. This isn't a vague policy discussion. This is a concrete proposal being developed right now as part of Japan's broader strategy to nurture and secure human resources in growth industries. The reasoning is straightforward but radical. Healthy workers are productive workers, and productive workers drive economic growth. So instead of waiting for healthcare costs to pile up, Japan wants to invest upfront in keeping the workforce physically active. What makes this particularly interesting is who's behind it. MEXT typically handles education and academic research. The fact that they're now driving workplace wellness policy tells you something important. Japan is treating worker health as a national strategic priority, not just an HR checkbox. The ministry is examining various support mechanisms, though specific budget figures haven't been publicly released yet. Industry analysts expect the program could involve hundreds of millions of yen in annual subsidies. Now here's where it gets interesting. Japan isn't doing this because it's trendy. They're doing this because they're desperate. Let me give you some numbers that explain everything. Japan has the oldest population on Earth. Nearly 29% of Japanese citizens are over 65 years old. Compare that to 17% in the United States. Every single year, Japan's working-age population shrinks by roughly 400,000 people. That's like losing a mid-sized city's worth of workers annually. And here's the productivity problem. Japanese workers clock some of the longest hours in the developed world, but output per hour actually lags behind the United States, Germany, and France. Long hours don't equal more work done. They equal exhausted workers making mistakes. The government has tried everything: immigration reform, automation incentives, work-style reform laws limiting overtime. None of it has been enough. So now they're trying something different. If you can't get more workers, make the workers you have more effective. And the data from corporate wellness programs suggests that healthy employees take fewer sick days, have more energy, make better decisions, and stay with companies longer. Japan is betting billions that this equation scales up to the entire economy. Let's talk about whether this actually makes financial sense. And this is where the numbers get really compelling. Multiple studies from Harvard, Johnson & Johnson, and the World Health Organization have found that corporate wellness programs deliver returns of roughly $3 for every $1 invested. That return comes from 3 main sources. First, direct healthcare cost reduction. Employees who exercise regularly have fewer chronic conditions, fewer hospitalizations, and lower prescription drug usage. In Japan's nationalized health system, that means less strain on government budgets. Second, reduced absenteeism. Physically active workers take an average of 2.5 fewer sick days per year than sedentary colleagues. Across millions of workers, that adds up to enormous productivity gains. Third, and this is the one executives love: engagement and retention. Employees who feel their company invests in their well-being are measurably more loyal and productive. Now here's the calculation Japan is making. If the government subsidizes company fitness programs, companies are more likely to implement them. If more workers get healthier, healthcare costs drop and productivity rises. If productivity rises, tax revenues increase. The government gets its money back and then some. At least, that's the theory. So what does this mean for Japanese businesses? Let's be realistic about who wins and who faces challenges. Large corporations will almost certainly benefit first. Companies like Toyota, Sony, and Hitachi already have extensive wellness programs including on-site gyms, sports teams, and health coaching. Government subsidies would essentially reward them for what they're already doing. They'll likely see tax breaks or direct grants that improve their bottom line with minimal additional effort. Mid-sized companies face a more interesting calculation. They'll need to weigh the cost of implementing new programs against the subsidies offered. Expect to see a boom in corporate wellness consultants and fitness technology vendors targeting this market. Small and medium enterprises, which employ about 70% of Japan's workforce, face real challenges. They may lack the resources, space, or administrative capacity to create formal fitness programs. The government will need to design flexible options for these businesses, possibly including subsidies for gym memberships or partnerships with local fitness facilities. There's also a compliance question. Any subsidy program requires proof that money is being used properly. Companies will likely face new reporting requirements documenting employee participation in wellness initiatives. That's administrative overhead that needs to be factored into the cost-benefit analysis. Here's what the mainstream coverage isn't telling you. Not every Japanese worker is thrilled about this. Surveys consistently show that around 67% of Japanese employees would appreciate more employer support for fitness and health. That's the headline. But dig deeper, and the picture gets complicated. First, there's the privacy issue. When your company starts tracking whether you exercise, what data are they collecting? How is it stored? Could it affect promotions or performance reviews? These questions make many workers uncomfortable, especially in Japan's traditionally hierarchical corporate culture. Second, there's a real tension with work-life balance. Japanese work reform has been trying to reduce overtime and give employees more personal time. Now the government wants to add fitness programs? Some workers see this as yet another obligation eating into their limited free time, even if it's technically optional. Third, and this is crucial, Japan's famous karoshi or death from overwork culture means many employees are simply too exhausted to exercise. The irony isn't lost on critics who point out that maybe the government should focus more on reducing working hours before adding wellness programs. The companies that succeed will be those who make fitness genuinely voluntary, convenient, and separate from performance evaluation. The business community is already positioning for this opportunity. Industry analysts suggest that fitness-related stocks on the Tokyo Stock Exchange could see increased interest as the policy develops. Major gym chains are reportedly examining strategies for corporate partnership programs. Think about it. If the government subsidizes workplace fitness, suddenly every company becomes a potential bulk customer for gym memberships, equipment, and training services. The wearable technology sector is another obvious beneficiary. Devices from companies like Fitbit, Apple, and Japanese manufacturers could become corporate purchases rather than individual ones. Some expect companies might provide activity trackers to employees as part of wellness initiatives. Health food and supplement companies are also watching closely. If corporations start promoting employee nutrition alongside exercise, cafeteria contracts and meal subsidy programs could transform the food service industry. But here's the contrarian view some analysts hold. Government subsidies can distort markets. If companies receive money specifically for certain types of programs, they might choose subsidized options over better ones. The fitness industry could end up shaped more by bureaucratic criteria than actual effectiveness. That said, most observers see this as a net positive for health-related sectors in Japan, with ripple effects potentially reaching international fitness brands operating in the market. So what happens next? Here's what you should be watching. The ministry is currently in the consideration and planning phase, with more detailed proposals expected to emerge in the coming months. Actual budget allocations will likely appear in Japan's next fiscal year planning cycle. Expect pilot programs before any nationwide rollout. Japan typically tests policies in specific regions or industries before scaling up. Initial programs might focus on specific sectors like manufacturing or healthcare, where productivity gains are easiest to measure. The international angle is fascinating. Other countries facing demographic challenges are watching Japan closely. South Korea, Germany, Italy, and eventually China will face similar workforce aging issues. If Japan's fitness subsidy experiment works, expect copycat policies worldwide. Conversely, if it fails or produces unintended consequences, that's equally valuable data. For investors, the key metrics to track will be program enrollment rates, measured health outcomes, and productivity statistics from participating companies. If early data looks promising, expect expanded funding. If results disappoint, the program could quietly disappear. Keep an eye on MEXT announcements and Japanese business news for developments. This is a policy area that could have significant economic implications over the next decade. Let's bring this together. Japan is attempting something genuinely innovative, using financial incentives to reshape workplace culture around employee health. The logic is sound. Healthier workers are more productive. More productive workers drive economic growth. Economic growth generates tax revenue that exceeds the subsidy cost. It's an investment with measurable returns. The challenges are real. Privacy concerns, implementation complexity for small businesses, and the risk of adding obligations to already overburdened workers all need careful management. But here's your actionable takeaway. Watch this policy closely, whether you're an investor, a business leader, or someone interested in the future of work. Japan is essentially running a massive real-world experiment on whether governments can improve economic performance by subsidizing employee fitness. If it works, this model will spread globally. Companies in every developed nation could eventually receive incentives for worker wellness programs. An entire new category of corporate spending could emerge, and the connection between health policy and economic policy will become permanent. Japan is betting that the future belongs to nations with healthy workforces. We're about to find out if they're right. Thanks for watching. If you found this valuable, subscribe for more Japan business insights.